Angola is in the grip of escalating unrest after a steep diesel price increase unleashed violence across the country. In late July 2025, a one-third rise in fuel costs triggered strikes, widespread protests, and ultimately tragedy. At least 22 people shot, hundreds injured, and over 1,200 arrests reported. This crisis has spotlighted the broader economic strain in Angola and intensified global scrutiny of government response. Here's what unfolded and why it matters. The unrest began Monday, July 28th, when diesel prices rose from roughly 300 to 400 kwanzas per litre, an approximate 33% increase. This move aligned with Angolan government efforts, advised by institutions like the IMF, to phase out fuel subsidies that had consumed up to 4% of GDP in prior years. Angola's large network of minibus taxi drivers, who serve as one of the primary public transport systems, swiftly initiated a 3-day strike in protest. What began as a transportation strike in Luanda expanded rapidly, with demonstrations reported in at least 6 other provinces. Scenes of looting, arson, and vandalism unfolded. Protesters vandalized 66 shops and damaged 25 vehicles. Sporadic gunfire, tear gas, and clashes with police created chaos across the capital and beyond. By midweek, the Angolan government confirmed at least 22 deaths, including 1 police officer, along with 197 injured individuals. Arrests soared to 1,214 nationwide. In response, the army was deployed to restore order amid what officials described as a climate of widespread insecurity. Angola has been gradually removing energy subsidies since 2023. Initially popular, the policy became increasingly controversial, as subsidy cuts boosted public revenue, yet strained citizens who rely on subsidized fuel to afford transport and basics. The resultant rise in taxi fares up to 50% compounded the anger of working-class Angolans already grappling with high living costs. These events are set against a backdrop of political stagnation. The People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, ruling since independence in 1975, faces mounting frustration over economic disparity and limited civic freedoms. Opposition parties UNITA and Bloco Democrático have called the unrest a symptom of economic policy that is disconnected from the country's reality. Critics argue the government lacks meaningful dialogue or transparency in policy decisions. Angola now faces difficult choices. Will it roll back the tariff hike to quell public anger, or double down on subsidy cuts to satisfy fiscal reform goals and international lenders? The balance between short-term relief and long-term structural adjustment remains fragile. Markets and reform watchers will be closely watching President Lourenço's next steps. Angola's mid-2025 fuel price protests mark a turbulent moment where economic reform collided with public hardship. The deaths of dozens, mass arrests, and reports of forceful suppression have elevated the crisis from a fiscal issue to a governance challenge. What began as a diesel price hike has catalyzed broader discontent and served notice that citizens' economic pressures and demands for accountability may no longer be ignored. As the country grapples with the aftermath, the ripple effects on social cohesion and political stability are only beginning.